Okay, good evening. Today is Wednesday, August 26th, and this is the Hendrick Hudson School District Board of Education meeting. Can I get a motion to open the meeting, please?
Lori.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Before we continue on, can I just get a roll call so that we know who is at the meeting tonight? Armin, would you like to do the roll call, please?
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. Carol Abraham. Here. Lisa Anderson.
Present.
Mary Patrick Briggy. Absent. Alexander Philbin. Here. Corey Natrika.
Here.
William Aricchio.
Here.
Lori Ryan.
Here.
Can we just call Mary Pat one more time? I thought I saw her on, but maybe she got bumped off.
Mary Pat Briggy. There's someone with a phone number there. I don't know who that is.
That's the district boardroom.
The 5-9 is the district boardroom?
Yes.
Because that's usually Mary Pat's number.
5-9 is muted.
Is 5-9 the district boardroom?
Yes, it is the boardroom.
Carol.
Yes.
I'm here.
Oh, hi Mary Pat. Okay,
No,
excellent.
I've been saying I'm here, and you guys are just keep talking about some phone numbers. So.
Okay, sorry.
You're muted.
Okay, so I think that is everybody. Thank you very much. All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Or does anybody want to pull any items from the consent agenda? Actually, let me do that first. Does anybody want to pull any items from the consent agenda? Bill?
I'd like to, the budget transfer, I have a question for Enrique when we get to it. The budget transfer for $393,000. There's 3 budget transfers, just the one.
Okay. Anybody else?
The one in the middle. Should I ask it now, or
No.
hold it up, or?
No, that's okay. We're just confirming that that's the one you want pulled.
Yeah.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so let's discuss the items pulled from the consent agenda, which tonight is Bill's question.
Okay, this is for Enrique. My understanding is budget transfers can't go from a non-fixed asset to a fixed asset account. It looks like that 393 is going from Social Security account to computer hardware. Is there an issue with us doing that, or is there a reason?
No, actually, we've been doing that for 10 years. If you remember, the computer hardware borrows money until we get the money from the lease.
Okay, so this is that temporary.
Yes, that's a temporary borrowing until we get the money for the lease.
So it's not really, in effect, it's more of a loan than a transfer.
But since we do the POs out of that account,
That's
there has to be money in the account.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the budget transfer for $393,600?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that is going to bring us to our superintendent's report. Before we start the superintendent's report, I just personally would like to applaud our administrators' foresight and commitment to student and staff safety, which allowed them to make a very difficult decision about 10 days ago to have a phased-in approach to our school year, which I see a lot of other districts in our area are now struggling with as well. Having that decision made earlier allowed our parents more time to plan and also more time for our administrators to discuss potential child care availability and issues with our area child care people. So I thank you guys for that. Okay, now on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you for that comment, Carol. It was, as you know, it was a difficult decision, but it was the right one to make. The LOHUD, or the Journal News, has been chronicling every school district and what their reopening plans are, and seeing how they've maneuvered or changed over time. Every day, maybe every hour, and we'll talk about that throughout the superintendent's report, we receive new guidance, revised guidance. We have wrinkles in the plan. We have some unintended consequences or hurdles to overcome, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we believe that we made the right decision a few weeks ago, and many other districts are making similar decisions. And even though LOHUD doesn't have the most updated analysis of school district plans, many districts are following in some of our footsteps to make sure that they're ready and over ready. We wanted to start with this document, Greg. It's just a quick one-pager, just as some talking points. A reminder that we sent out our opening of school dates. As Carol mentioned, we talked a few weeks ago about starting remote in order to have more time to make sure we were not just ready, but we were over planned and thoroughly ready. So superintendent's conference days on the 2nd, 3rd, 8th, and 9th. Starting the 10th of September, we'll have remote days for students. These are going to be half days. That's going to allow additional time for our staff to collaborate and additional training and protocols to be reviewed and put in place. The week of September 21st, we will be all day in our remote model, and then starting on the 29th is when students will come into the building. Now, during the time between September 10th, when we start remote, and the 29th, our principals are working with Margaret and Lisa to invite certain students in at certain times. Meet the teacher, whether it's kindergarten and first grade students. Certain special education programs will be coming into the buildings during that time. The middle school would like to achieve a 6th grade orientation program, and the high school 9th grade orientation. So we will slowly be integrating students into the buildings during the month of September. But in terms of in-person, in-school instruction, that will start on Tuesday, September 29th. In that vein, the 3 elementary schools had a series of reopening meetings with their families last week. They were well attended. The high school had their reopening meeting on Monday. The middle school's meeting will be tomorrow. All of these schools have worked very closely with their PTAs in terms of identifying questions to be answered and helping facilitate and moderate the conversations. They've lasted anywhere between an hour and a half and almost 2.5 hours. And those meetings have been recorded and have been posted on various district web pages. And I mentioned athletics here in this one pager because we want to make sure that we're very, very clear with parents and our student athletes. What the governor decided earlier in the week was that he was allowing the state to create a plan to begin athletics. He had one caveat. He said that volleyball and football are not ready yet. His rationale was because of close proximity and just the nature of that sport is you have many players in a small confined space. So while he gave permission for New York State to begin the discussion, it doesn't necessarily mean athletics are beginning on September 21st. In fact, many communities are recommending that athletics don't start until after the new year. That was a model that was floated late last spring and over the summer, where essentially winter sports would take place in January and February, fall sports would take place in March and April, and spring athletics would take place in May and June. So all 3 seasons would happen all of the students would have an opportunity to participate, but it would be in a much more condensed and truncated season. And the reason for that is it certainly does not bode well where schools are starting remote, and of course, as we just said, September 29th. There are many districts that have committed to a remote model into November, if not all the way to the new year. And it doesn't make sense to have students begin the year for a significant period of time remotely if athletics are beginning. So I want to make sure everyone understands that what the governor said is that he's allowing the state to create a timeline for athletics. New York State Athletic Association and each of the sections will decide what that timeline and what that schedule looks like. And it's important to also underscore we have many students who are participating in our fully remote model starting in the fall, and Margaret can give us a breakdown of those numbers in a little bit. But all students in our district, even if they choose the remote model, they'll be eligible for athletics if and when they start. So that was a question a lot of folks were interested in, because if you homeschool your child, you are not eligible for athletics, but if you're choosing our remote model, you are eligible for athletics. Before we go around the horn, I want to turn it over to Laura. We put on the agenda the specific conversation around staffing and challenges. She shared 2 weeks ago some changes with regards to coronavirus and leaves, childcare leave, medical leave, and she gave an overview of what those challenges and what those changes are. We're at the point now where she's meeting with staff, and Enrique is meeting with staff, and we have quite a bit, a high number of teachers who are indicating that they're not eligible to return to the classroom. And that could pose some significant challenges for us, and I want Laura just to give a brief overview of what she's seeing and some of the general discussions she's having with staff.
Sure. So under, well, there's two different areas that are coming to Enrique and I. One are medical accommodations based on disability. So under ADA, staff who have an identified disability and disability puts them at a greater risk due to, with COVID, are requesting medical accommodations. Some of these accommodations are to teach remotely. So this is a challenge that we are trying to work with teachers and all staff on, just engaging in conversations with them to identify appropriate accommodations, reasonable accommodations that we can provide for them to fulfill their job duties and responsibilities. The other side of this is we also have the federal law indicates that all staff can request leave for childcare purposes if their school is closed or their child care center or provider is closed due to COVID. They are applicable to an extension of FMLA. So FMLA traditionally is a 12-week protected leave, and traditionally is unpaid unless it is for one's own medical conditions, and then they use their sick days concurrently. Under this extension, staff can request leave, and they can request it on an intermittent basis, meaning 2 days a week. They could say, I am unable to come to work because my child's child care center or school is closed due to COVID, so therefore I need to take a leave on these specific days. It is paid at 2/3 their daily rate, or a maximum of $200 a day, and that's how it's calculated. There's also the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, EPSLA, which allows 2 weeks concurrently with FMLEA or in addition, or if people are need to be out for quarantine purposes, caring for someone due to quarantine purposes. But again, it also covers those with childcare leave. So we have a lot of staff in our district that are parents, and they are dealing with waiting for their school schedules to, a lot of people are telling me they still don't know what their schools are doing yet. They don't know if they're doing a rollout, if they're going to be remote, and what the hybrid schedule is. And a lot of schools are not offering, for example, 5 days a week, K-5 like we are. So the staff is being put in a situation where they cannot find childcare. And so federally, They are allotted this time. The biggest challenge is we might be without staff, especially in September, where it seems to be the biggest challenge because of staff members, schools are remote for September, and then also the intermittent leave, because we then have to figure out how already we've all, Margaret and Lisa and I have been working on just staffing with the principals based on these smaller class sizes, but now we have to figure out who will fill in for these teachers who might be out 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or 12 weeks in total.
This really is one of the issues and perhaps unintended consequences of when the book is written on how schools handled reopening in a pandemic. We have around 10% of our teachers live in our school district, so 90% don't. And as every school district sort of climbs over one another to make a robust and rigorous reentry plan, any deviation from one district to the next is going to impact the adults who live in one community, work in the other, or vice versa. So what we're seeing is in the absence of a statewide blueprint of how districts should be scheduling their time or how the hybrid schedule would work with the rotation, we're running into these unintended consequences of not necessarily being able to guarantee we're going to have all staff every day. So as Laura mentioned, one of the conversations we're having is it's a binary decision of a staff member who is healthy enough and qualified to work, but not necessarily in our classrooms. We would have to make the decision of potentially not offering that program because they can't teach from our school. And that's a conundrum many districts are in, and we share that conundrum because we do have some folks that teach very specialized courses that are uniquely certified, or maybe they're advanced placement, or you name it. So that's what I said earlier, the new hurdle, the new issue that we're learning as we go. This is just one of them, and it's significant. Any questions for Laura with regards to that?
Just going to ask the same thing. Does anybody, Lori, you have a question or comment? Lori, you have to unmute.
Sorry, there's a lot of background noise right now with 3 dogs, a husband, and people walking in. But I don't know if this is the right time, but I actually have a ton of questions, to tell you the truth. Take them outside. Hi, everybody at home. Yes, this is my life. So what Laura is talking about is actually what we were talking about today. I mean, there is no possible way that we're going to be prepared for everything. And I think everybody really needs to know that. So for example, if we're giving children the opportunity to learn remotely, and Laura, you touched on this, are we giving teachers the opportunity to teach remotely all of the time? That's one thing. Another one is, what happens when a teacher is absent? If you're at home, if you're on the day where you're remote, or if you're completely remote, how does everybody know that teacher is remote? And then what happens? And then at the end of the year, because let's say Carol has to take 30 days off for different reasons because of childcare, because of exposure, if we send out something like, okay, your teacher Carol is not in today, first of all, where do those kids go in school? Then we're going to have 50,000 kids in one room with a sub. Nothing is going to be taught because those kids will not be able to log in unless the sub has some kind of something, I don't know. But then parents are also going to say, okay, this teacher was absent 30 times. So have we thought about stuff like that? Or, I mean, I have a lot more questions, but that has to do with the subs and the building and the kids in school and what happens and who informs what teacher is not going to be there. Because quite frankly, we know a sub can't, we're going to have problems. And it's not of our doing or our fault. We just know stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, let me take a first crack. Let me take the first crack at that. We have been having discussions about whether or not we should permit staff to teach from home, because the alternative is that they're If they're not at work, then they're not working, period. And it goes back to, the question Lori asked, if students can stay home and learn and be on a synchronous schedule, should teachers be allowed to instruct from home on a synchronous schedule with, frequent check-ins and being, supervised virtually? That's a question many districts are wrestling with, including us, because the alternative could be that we don't have a qualified sub, whether it's for 30 days or for 14 days if someone has to quarantine by recommendation of the Department of Health, that kids will miss out. Corey Hendrick actually sent us an article about a school district in California that literally flipped the classroom, that students report to school and are supervised in classrooms while teachers are working remotely. And the school provides supervision, the school provides breakfast and lunch, and there are aides or monitors or a group of adults to supervise students in the classroom receiving instruction. And it sounds so backwards, but it makes sense, especially when qualified, certified teachers are at a premium, and they are. There is no bench anymore in public education. We're almost at a full workforce. Those that are certified and that want to work are. And so that article Corey sent a couple weeks ago is exactly what schools today are contemplating in order to keep kids connected and allow them to continue on in their coursework. So what the conversation we're going to have, particularly at the middle school and high school, and we have a meeting tomorrow, is to determine if we can provide supervision for students, to go through their schedule in both schools and be supervised in a classroom and receive instruction virtually as opposed to the other way around.
I kind of don't like that, just saying.
It's not ideal.
I know, if we're asking kids to come into school, you're teaching, you know how I feel. Like, I'm going to school, so I kind of don't like that. Then we're asking for a babysitter in school that has to deal with everything, and I kind of don't like that. But, times are times. All right,
the challenge though too is that we're short teaching assistants and aides.
Right.
So you will see that we have some resignations this evening because teaching is in such high demand right now. Some of our teaching assistants who are certified teachers have jobs now. So we're losing even more of our staff. We have posted for teaching assistants and permanent building subs. Those are key players in making this all work. Traditionally, teaching assistants do work as subs in our day to day when people are out and the substitute can't be in or the permanent sub isn't there. So the more TAs we're short, the harder this is going to be as well. These are all real challenges you're bringing up, Lori.
I know that we're thinking them right now, and if we talk about our special needs children, I mean, the teachers have to be there with them. Like, you have all different concerns, so you really need the adults there. So what are we thinking about what's going to happen if, let's say, I'm going to school, but I don't have little children. Actually, I have a high schooler who's going to be on a crazy schedule, but at least he's old enough to take care of himself. But what happens when the teacher does call in and say, I can't be in today or something? Who relays that to the children who are at home that day or forever? Who gets in touch with those children that your chemistry teacher is not in school today? So did we figure that one out at all?
Yeah, that's one of the mechanisms we're putting in place starting with the attestation screener. There are 4 questions that all staff are going to have to answer and families in order to come to school. And
so you'll be emailing like people in that class that their teacher will be. Yeah. I want parents to really understand that we are all parents too. So I don't know how many parents are listening, but you have to. I really apologize, but you have to not attack us this year because we have children too, and some of us, if you have little kids and you have 3 little kids and they all have to be on different places at different times, you can't say at the end of the year, oh, Miss Abate was absent 30 times and this teacher wasn't. Well, maybe that teacher doesn't have children home or something like that. So we do please ask for your patience, etc. Not my last, but Wednesdays is all remote. Is that for cleaning purposes? explain Wednesday to me again?
Yeah, so with the middle school and high school, we have students in 2 cohorts. And
Right.
the reason they're in 2 cohorts is to meet a lot of the criteria, not all the criteria from the Department of Health and the CDC. We can't prohibit middle school and high school kids from traveling around the building because their coursework demands that they have access to certain equipment, lab equipment, music, you understand. So the idea is with the Wednesday is that all students will remain home and remote, and there will be a fixed schedule because the State Education Department demands it. The
Right.
State Education Department demands attendance every day and live instruction every day, and at the secondary level every period.
Right.
So, yes, there would be no students in the school on Wednesday, middle school and high school, and that would allow Anthony and his team to do a more thorough cleaning. There will be cleaning every day and throughout the day, but Wednesday will be a day of no student foot traffic, and they'll be able to really do a much more thorough cleaning as one group exits and a new group comes in on Thursday.
Are teachers teaching remotely on Wednesdays, or will they be in their classrooms?
They will be, as of now, the plan is for everyone to be in their classroom every day.
So then how is there supposed to be thorough cleaning with chemicals when, if teachers are in their classroom, what rooms are they going to clean if teachers are in their room?
Well, it may be that there's a truncated bell schedule. We've talked about having all students go through all classes on Wednesday, so they may see every student for 20 minutes a day, which means the instructional day could end as early as 12:30 or 1, and then have time for collaboration or have time for office hours. And there will have to be a schedule. The cleaning will have to take place in certain places of each school and in certain times to make sure it doesn't interrupt the instruction that's going out from the classroom.
Would we be open to allowing teachers to teach from home on Wednesday so that the schools can be thoroughly cleaned with all of these chemicals, etc.? That I feel very bad for the custodians who have to do all this, but
We're becoming more and more open to that for many, many reasons, and this is one of them. And that's I think that's the importance of the conversation and around how this plan really evolves. And all plans are evolving. I mean, many districts today are not where they were 2 months ago or a month or 2 weeks ago. That would be a conversation to have and make sure that parents understand that it's still scheduled, it's still synchronous, we're still following a bell schedule, and there are expectations. And just because staff are teaching remotely and not from the classroom doesn't mean that there isn't high quality instruction. Last year, remember, when we were closed for the spring, the governor ordered schools to be closed, and he ordered them to basically be mothballed for that time. It wasn't closed school for no students, it was closed school and teach and work remotely. So that had a different impression upon parents that, how can you really teach or how can you learn if you're not in the physical building? And I think we learned how to navigate through those waters. So that's an open question, Lori. It's certainly on our radar, and if we feel that that's the best option for many reasons, including a staffing reason, we'll certainly speak with all the appropriate unions and make sure we have assurances in place that the job still gets done, even if it's not in our classrooms.
right, even though I know, I make kids clean their desks all the time, and we're not supposed to, but how much responsibility can we ask of children? So they are not supposed to be sweeping, etc. But can they bring in wipes to wipe off their desk? And I'm not saying can they, because I'm sure some of them will, but what is it that we are allowed to ask of student responsibility, probably in the high school, because we really don't want little kids doing anything, but although that's not a bad idea to teach children this proper hygiene too, but what can we have children do to pitch in and help out? Now, I know they can't use all the stuff between hallways, that's not what I'm talking about, but their personal space at desks or maybe at their seat in the lunchroom or whatever. Can we do anything?
Yeah, Anthony's with us to talk about construction, but I'll speak a little bit and let him finish off the commentary. That's exactly the discussion throughout our region, because schools don't have the custodial staff to be cleaning every classroom them after every use.
Right.
And classroom capacity or classroom usage is consistent. It's, we may have half the kids in the building at the time, but we're not using half the school, if that makes sense. So we're adopting a model that many districts have adopted. There'll be wipes, there'll be spray bottles, there'll be paper towels. It's similar to if you go to the gym and you use some weights and then you spray them down, wipe them down, and be done. So it's not necessarily a responsibility, but I think as you said, Lori, it's sort of chipping in to make the system work. Anthony has purchased a significant amount of cleaning agents, both very, very significant, and other ones that are routine, and as well as bottles of wipes and disinfectant and sanitizer. But that's the plan. The plan is to have classrooms well stocked with that material, so kids could do a quick spray test in between classes.
Only because I don't have a child with us anymore, what kind of communication has gone home? Like many of you still have children. What kind of communication has gone home where all this is still spelled out for parents? Like, has that gone out yet? Do kids know when they're supposed to be in? Do parents know their schedules? Do parents know that their kids have a class every single period? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the schedules at the secondary level are being finalized. We still have left the window open for families to choose a full remote option until Monday.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Well, that's another unintended consequence. We never received complete and consistent guidance from the state around the remote option. Then the governor basically permitted it in a press conference. So the deadline closed for elementary on Monday, and Margaret met with elementary principals to put class lists together and to confirm families who signed up for remote to make sure the children didn't sign themselves up. And at the middle school and high school, that deadline is Monday. So the schedules are being built. At the middle school, it's pretty much spoken for. Kids move by grade level. There are electives, but not a significant amount. And at the high school, course selection took place in the spring. But they're going to move through their schedule building early next week after we know who is remote. Enrique and Anthony led a conversation with the principals on Monday to talk about a lot of the logistics, about parent drop-off, bus drop-off, doors in and out of the buildings. So those plans are being finalized and will be communicated. Each of the, so far, 4 of our 5 schools have done a parent Q&A. The middle school being tomorrow, so a lot of these questions were asked and answers provided, and that Q&A, will be provided to families as well. So it's evolving. Liz Gilliot put out a survey for parents who are committing to not ride a bus, meaning that they're going to drop their children off. That's going to have a trickle-down effect in terms of traffic at the schools, the need for law enforcement presence and our own security folks to be present. So a lot of those details, the granular details that in a normal situation would have been done a long, long time ago, are still somewhat evolving because we're really still not 100% finished with who is coming to school and who is not. And as we build those class lists, and as Liz identifies how many kids she's bringing on a bus, a lot of those things will be wrapped up in short order and then certainly communicated.
Okay, just Lori, 1 second. If we can try to keep this to staffing considerations, there is another section coming up on general reopening updates, and I feel like we're veering off topic. And if parents want to look at one section versus another, it makes it difficult for them.
I apologize. Only because that's
quite all right. I know you have a lot of really good thoughts.
Questions right then and there.
I completely understand.
Now I'm going to forget, Carol.
Write it down. Write it down. Does anybody else have any questions about staffing or considerations or challenges? I know one thing I've seen is that there are a lot of calls out there for people who are setting up pods for their children or private tutoring organizations that are asking for teachers at a rate way above what we can pay our substitutes. So I think that's going to be a huge challenge for us going forward with our teaching assistants and our substitutes.
Did we
Can I
have
ask
more
a question?
than normal? Like just
No, we didn't.
Sorry.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead, Mary Pat.
At what point will we have, I mean, right now, I mean, there's conversation about travel in the hallways and watching down the desk and having children watch them. We don't even know what teachers will be there. At what point will we have any sense of what the staffing is? I mean, I'll be honest with you, and you say teachers are worried, you know, wondering like, you know, the plans are out and yes, things are changing, but there's a lot of teachers out, and everybody knows if you have a medical condition or something, you can write those people, you know, if they've applied for a medical consideration or, you know, then they're not showing up. So those, you know that those teachers are, you can take them off the list. At what point will we have a handle on what the staffing is? Because I think, frankly, to have the children come in and then have them to come in and then be babysat, for lack of a better word, or, you know, to be staying in a room with, you know, unnecessarily, so that they can be taught remotely by a teacher, I think is I mean, unless you consider it a child care issue, it's a ridiculous. I just think there needs to be a better handle on, you know, who's going to, what teachers are actually going to be in the building before you can decide which children can come in.
Unfortunately, that can change daily, though. Let's say,
yes, it can, but you know what? Yes, it can, but you have these teacher days, but a lot of it's not going to change. A lot of it's not, because if you have a teacher who has a certain, you know, medical situation, he or she is not coming, and they'll tell you that. And it's, you know, whether it's somebody in the family. Well, a lot of people know. I mean, if they have a certain, you know, a comorbidity that makes them more susceptible or it's more dangerous for them, they're not coming in. And whether it's, you know, whatever that may be. Or if they're concerned about bringing it home to a family member who may have one of those, they're not coming in. And again, so there's a question of what that teacher's, you know, what that teacher's coming, what the staffing looks like. I mean, if Mrs. Smith has some issue and she can't come in, then you know that. I mean, what are you going to do? One, does Mrs. Smith get paid? And two,
teaching from home then.
But well then, so what do? Do all of Mrs. Smith's students have to like learn remotely, or do they come in and they have a sitter? I'm sorry, a teacher's aide, or somebody come and basically just sort of walk around the room while she's teaching like remotely. And I think that needs to be addressed, whether Mrs. Smith is, you know, who's available before we start doing this. And I think to start talking, I just have some serious reservations about this part. And frankly, I know that there's been, my second question I can deal with later. But I do think that there needs to be a handle on what teachers are actually going to be there. And if the teacher's not going to be there, why would you bother bringing a child in? Again, unless there's a child care issue at home. Why would you bother bringing a child in? So, I mean, he can just as easily be taught remotely at home. Why bring him in to, like, you know, into a classroom, you know, and that, put that additional population and put that burden on the school district for, like, you know, to have an extra TA or somebody to watch that child or whatever else if the teacher's not even going to be there.
For the middle school or at the middle school or high school, then they have other teachers other than that one. So just because one teacher might be teaching remotely and you have a sub who turns something on, they still have 6 other classes. Now, I don't know about the little ones, but that would have...
Well, I think the little ones definitely, and frankly, you don't have the child care issue with the older ones, but you do have the other issue. What happens to those kids? I mean, if they're there for 3 periods, and then the other 3, they're being, you know, the other, I don't know, 3 classes they're taught remotely. So they're there for 3 in-person classes. I mean, I think that we need to get a handle on the staffing piece and get an absolute handle on who's actually going to be there and how each classroom is going to be, be taught or supervised or whatever. Because again, that's a huge issue. That why bring the kids in if the teacher's not going to be there?
So, Mary Pat, I could answer that to the best of my ability in that when it comes to requesting, for example, leave under FMLEA or EPSLA, there is no deadline that we can provide to people. They can notify us the day of, the day after they call out. So there is no deadline. What I have done is done an all call to staff to say, please, 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 if you think that you need to take a leave for any kind, please let me know. And Enrique's doing the same thing so that we can plan as best as possible. And what this does create is a lot of work on our end to figure out and identify class sections, who's teaching what, just to plan on those people who may not be here. And so, unfortunately, we are legally not allowed to give them a deadline to notify us. When it comes to medical accommodations, the same all call has gone out. If you have accommodation needs, if you have a disability, please let me or Enrique know as soon as possible so we can work with them. I have, met with people individually. I've had probably 30 meetings with staff. I've gotten additional requests beyond that. It then requires, and it can't be just someone saying, my doctor says I shouldn't come to work. I remind staff that their essential function is to teach students. And so I do need them to be very clear about their disability and what the diagnosis is and what accommodations are recommended. Is it additional PPE? Is it a gown? Is it a mask? Is it a face shield? Is it a barrier? Anthony Merlini is getting a lot of these requests as well. So we're trying to do our best to identify legally and medically the right thing at the same time with time running out. And so when it comes to who subs or who covers, that's why we try to make sure we have enough permanent building subs in every building. We believe in them because they create relationships with our students and their teachers. So it's a really easy switch for someone to step in and they get all the same training that all the other teachers have. And that's something we're planning for next week. All of our subs are getting all the same training. However, we don't have as many, we don't have as many teaching assistants to step up. We do run out, and that's something Joe has brought up, that we could be in a situation where we wake up one morning and at 5 a.m. we see that we have X amount of staff who are called out and we have to close school because we don't have the staff to run safely. But these are all the questions and the issues you're bringing up are things that we are wrestling with constantly and trying to keep up with it and figure out how to make this work and to make it work for our students, for educationally, and also for safety.
Like I said, I just, I find it unfathomable that this is something, this didn't come around, and yet this, nobody saw this coming in March, but we're 5 or 6 months later. These teachers, they know whether they're coming or not. They know what their comfort level is. They know what their need is, whether they have small children or a husband or a wife or somebody with some medical issue that makes them particularly susceptible, and they're not going to, do that. The same way parents know which children might have immunodeficiency that they're not going to have. It's where they know. So my concerns, we're having these conversations about bringing the kids in, but it just, again, the fact that the staffing is just so, it's so undefined. It is just astonishing to me and I don't know whether it's the teachers or whatever, but that is absolutely, and this is the situation that I've heard from parents where this is a huge issue because they don't know what to do with their kids, because they don't know if they're going to have a teacher. They don't know if they're sending the high schooler in for 2 periods and is it worth it, or the middle schooler in for 3, is it worth it? And they're driving them and they're working their own schedules because yes, Lori, I know teachers have children, but a lot of parents work too. So this is a mutual thing. This is everybody's on shaky ground here trying to figure this out. But the reality is at this point, the fact that the staffing, that there's, again, it's so completely there's just no boundaries here. I mean, there's no way to determine, the lack of, I don't know whether it's information, cooperation, whatever, that this information is not being provided or not, whatever, is not available, is just astonishing, because you need to have this if this is the foundation piece that you can build, like how many kids you can maintain in rooms, if you even know you can have a teacher there first. So I apologize, that's my concern, and I just, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves until we know exactly, like, if we even have the teachers in there, who will staff the classes. And I appreciate we may have lots of subs, but as you said, that'll dry up really fast, especially if there's an opportunity elsewhere, or if there's, or if they come to some conclusion where they have their own, medical or concerns or just reservations about coming in. So, I mean, the fact that we don't have that number is just, I think, makes all of this so much more challenging and so much more problematic for not just you guys, but for every parent out there who's trying to figure out what to do with their child.
It does. What I'm happy to hear is that you're actually asking some of the teachers, listen, please let us know. So, I mean, they're doing the best they can, and you're right.
Lori, they know what they have these issues.
Well, that's why they should be telling Laura, and that's why they should. These people are asking them. They're asking.
But people know. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There needs to, maybe you can't push it legally, but, there's a responsibility there that if you're not going to show up, just let us know so that we can figure it out ahead, so that we can deal with it. I mean, there's got to be some way to get that information a little bit sooner.
And some of these teachers have very uncertain situations also. They don't know what their schools are doing. They don't know if they are going to be quarantined because they've been exposed, or someone in their family is quarantined. So those situations are always going to be fluid, right, during the year.
Correct, but there's a lot they aren't.
Hopefully we can get the teachers that have long-term concerns down pat early on. But I think that this year is going to be very, very challenging because everybody has a very fluid situation.
And hopefully, you know what, let's pray this is temporary.
Actually, this morning, Anthony, Liz, and I had a conversation with the custodians, drivers, and what we agree is that the custodians will allow chauffeurs to drive the big buses in case there's too many custodians that are sick on a day. So the custodians in that sense have been very good, very helpful. They've been working with us, and what they promised is that we will not stop opening school because there's no one to drive the kids to school or back home. So that, at least that part, we feel very comfortable. Obviously, our custodians in general have older children. The bus drivers are mainly men, so the spouse is usually at home if they have an issue like that. It's a little bit different than teachers, but we have a commitment from them that either way, we are going to be able to drive the kids to school and back home on a daily basis.
I don't know if this goes now, but about the busing and personnel in the busing, who's making sure the kids are sitting where they're supposed to sit, and what if they start sitting next to each other? Like, who ensures that?
Well,
I don't know if it's a silly question, but it's a consideration.
Lori, that was a question from the union, and obviously there's a driver there, and his job is to drive, not to be looking at kids where they are sitting, where they are not sitting. I mean, it's going to depend on every case. We have cameras, so if we see that a child keeps taking their mask off every day, we can show it to the principals, and then it's going to be dealt with the principals. There's going to be access in every seat that students can sit. Is the driver going to check that Johnny didn't sit where That's not their job. So, you know, it's not perfect, but, you know, it's going to depend if it's here and there that a kid takes off the mask. That's fine, you know, there's nothing we can do. If it's the constant kid that doesn't do it, and we have the video, then we can, the driver will report to Liz will report to the principal, and then the principal will deal with the kid and the family. But I agree with you, and they are worried because they are saying, I cannot be driving and checking where every kid is seated.
Does anybody else have any questions with regards to staffing considerations, challenges, comments?
I do.
With regards to that.
I do, Carol.
Go ahead, Alice.
So I'm curious what the financial consequences or implications are going to be. We're paying teachers 100% or 2/3 of their salary, and then on top having to pay for subs. How is that going to affect our budget?
When the teacher's out right now, and Enrique, maybe you want to follow up on this. So when the teacher's out, if they traditionally use a sick day, they have built-in sick days that they earn every year and accrue. If they are out for FMLEA, for any of these under the Coronavirus Act, then they get a maximum salary of $200 a day or 2/3 of their daily rate, depending on which one's higher. So they're not getting paid the full amount that they normally would. So just like normally if someone takes FMLA because they themselves have serious medical condition, they would use their sick days while on FMLA, and all of that is 12 weeks protected leave federally. But beyond that, if someone uses their sick days, yes, they get paid their salary, and then we have to compensate with a substitute. Enrique, you may want to jump in.
Actually, Alex, by coincidence, Laura and I were discussing a secretary today. We don't have to say much, but that was the issue. The issue is she really sick, and that's why she cannot get back to work, and then she can use sick day, and we have to pay her, or she's not coming to work because of the coronavirus, and then it's only $200. So in that sense, we're going to start looking at you know, how much more we're spending that we were supposed to, and at one point we'll have to be making decisions. Obviously, we have other accounts or money in other accounts that we won't use. You know, if let's say this goes through the whole year, then we know that, you know, basically in the winter, Wednesday, Saturday, I can turn down the heat. Half of the parents are driving their children, so I have less fuel. One will hopefully balance the other ones. If we don't have sports, we don't have overtime. So we'll be monitoring on a month-to-month basis. But just to give you an example, from last year, before coronavirus, I told the board that we were going to have about $1.5 million in fund balance. We haven't had that already, but it's going to get to close to $4 million. So everything, you know, and we pay every teacher every day, because when they were there was not like, oh, I took FMLA, I took this. So we save about, I'll say, $2.5 million in other expenses. So I assume that it's going to happen the same next year. We'll spend more in some issues, but less in another one. But at one, you know, if at one point I see that we're spending a lot more and we're not compensating on the savings, then I'll bring it to the board and we'll have to make those decisions. No question about it.
Can I ask a question? Just for clarification, because I'm sure if there's people listening, they're probably wondering, most people, if they don't work, they don't get paid. And I appreciate some of these teachers have FMLA or they have sick time, but if you get a teacher who's like, I'm not comfortable, or a staff member, doesn't have to be a teacher, I'm not comfortable, they don't want to come, why are we even, like, why would we continue paying them? I mean, especially if we wind up having to pay their salary and a substitute and some other. I just, at what point can we say, you know what, you're choosing not to work, and therefore why don't we pay you?
Maripat, fortunately or unfortunately, legally we can't, because remember, first of all, if we decide that we're running out of money and we need to cut teachers, maybe we will need to cut the lead senior teacher that is the one that is coming, but the one that is not coming is very senior and we cannot cut it. So that's why I'm saying, legally, because of coronavirus, we cannot cut people like that. Now, obviously, any teacher makes more than $200 a day in pay. So let's say that it's a teacher that makes $800. She's only going to receive $200. So the other $600 we can use to, if there's substitutes, to get substitutes.
Yeah, I get that, but you know, and I understand the financial piece. That's you know, but the kids are getting screwed here. I mean, and I know it keeps going back. It goes back to that, but at the end of the day, the kids aren't getting what they need, and it's not. But again, you have a teacher or somebody who's saying, you know, sorry, I'm just not comfortable, so I'm going to take my $200 a day and I'm going to stay home. I mean, why that person? Do we have to keep that person?
Yeah, because of what I just told you. Because
we can't let that person go because they abandon their job.
It's like this is not considered abandoning the job. I mean, it's very difficult. We're hoping, let's put it this way, that the teachers, not only the teachers, TAMA, CSEA, secretaries, everyone works with us, and we don't have that many people that have to stay home. But it's something, you know, it's something that...
Well, Laura has said there's quite a few already who've come to her. So she said somewhere like 30 at least already, and then there's still more coming. So that's, you know, I mean, you're looking at probably, it's easily 20% right now.
No, 30 means, we have 250 teachers, but it doesn't matter. It's about 15%. Yeah, but it hasn't finished. And again, you know, we're trying to work within the box that the federal government is telling us to work, the state government, and you know, it's very difficult. I agree with you. I can tell you that, you know, as much as I have a hard work, Laura and Joe they have it twice as hard because, you know, some of that were custodians, they commit and are willing to work with us, and in some cases, some teachers are, and some teachers are not, and some TAMA members are, and some other TAMA members are not. But we need to work around that. We need to keep the...
No, I I understand that. I just been finding it frustrating because, again, it goes back to the staffing. It's the fact that, you have teachers or staff, I shouldn't just keep saying teachers, who are choosing not to come in and maybe not even choosing to notify, and then, but at the same time expecting to get paid or expecting to have accommodations made for them. And that's fine, but in this day and age, everybody is on, everybody is off kilter here. And, we all have, and my feeling is everybody needs to, get a little bit beyond their comfort zone, not unsafely, but to, step up and if nothing else, let people know what their situation is, and so that the appropriate plans can be made. And again, it's not all about just, covering their own. It's a matter of, at the end result, we're all just trying to get these kids educated here. So, and we're the up district after all.
I think this comes full circle in the sense that, we started talking about, Lori asked the question whether or not teachers could teach remotely. A year ago or 8 months ago, it was you worked by showing up to a school to perform your function. That now has been flipped upside down, where of all professions, in the education profession, there's the potential for work to the worker, where we could have high absenteeism for very legitimate medical reasons. We understand all of that. And teachers could still perform their duty remotely. And that's what has changed and twisted in our profession, is it was you could only do your job by physically being present, and now that's not even the case. So that goes back to Laura's question of would we consider people to work remotely? If 5 teachers are told to quarantine for 14 days, having them work remotely, I would say, is a better solution than hoping that we can have substitute teachers for all 14 of those days. And that's a completely different mindset and a different paradigm for those of us who have spent our careers in public education. It's flipped. It's literally flipped.
Corey, would you like to say anything on this matter, or Bill?
No, I think a lot has been said. We definitely covered a lot of topics on there, so yeah.
All right, Bill, did you have any comments before we move on to our capital project update?
No, I agree with Corey.
All right, great. So let's move on to our capital project update.
Anthony Marlini is with us, as if opening schools in a pandemic wasn't enough excitement. We are wrapping up a capital construction project where we have we have work in all 5 of our schools, some more significant than others, and it's very visible because when you drive by the schools, you can see the work being done. So, Anthony, if you could give us a quick rundown by school, and also I know you and Enrique met with our construction team earlier this week, if you want to provide an update.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We'll try to run through this. We've had a big push the last 10 days.
Are you there?
He's muted.
What, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can start a little bit while he unmutes himself. He knows a lot more than me, but we've been meetings every Tuesday. Basically, going one by one, the high school, we expect it to be ready. Anthony, you're here.
Yeah, the problem is I have the machine with me, so I have to do either one or the other, and Greg's going to work through it. So, like I started saying, good evening, everyone. If you can hear me now, right? There's been a big push the last 10 days or so. Everything has to happen in sequence. Everything has to happen in order. You have a general contractor, electrical contractor, mechanical contractor, plumbing contractor, etc. And all these individuals need to work hand in hand. So you can't rough in a wall with new electrical until the wall is roughed in, and then you can't sheetrock the wall until the electric is put in and the plumbing is in. So all these contractors have to work together and get everything on the same page. And the last 10 days have been a huge push, and we plan on pushing them next week and etc. And a lot of things are coming together, and they're coming together really fast. So it's exciting to see it happen. But when you're looking from the outside and you're looking at things and you're looking at a wall and it's just studs and you go, man, I can't imagine this happening and finishing. But we're pushing along, we're painting, we're rocking, and we're rolling. I mean, it's exciting to see it, come together. I'll do a quick rundown, like Joe said. I'll start at Frank G. Lindsay. In the start of the project, we did a lot of exterior facade repairs, some brickwork, some lentils on the outside of the building, some steel. That's all been completed. We're concentrating now on the security entrance. The new sidewalk was put in there, a retaining wall to get that all situated so we can come in on the visitors can come in a different entrance. We're looking to have some millwork installed next week. And we're looking to wrap things up in that security area by the following week when we get starting school again. Staff and students, they're coming back different times, but when we start having our professional development days the following week and that 8th, 9th, and whatever. The one thing that we're not going to see, though, is the entrance that's coming into that. Their storefronts, they're considered like a security storefront. And with COVID, the shop drawings and fabrication process was delayed in that. That won't hamper us in terms of opening school. We still have an entrance to come inside the buildings. We have other entrances that we can use, and we've been working with the principals and the staff in the building of how we can figure that all out. So we're good there. Site lighting, that should be completed the beginning of next week. I don't know if you remember what that project was. We have 6 poles going in, exterior lighting. They're a wind-powered and solar-powered light, self-sustained. Aris Wind is putting those in. They're the sub to the electrical contractor AGV, and those should be completed at the beginning of next week. The kindergarten playground, that was installed, and that's about 95% complete. There's a couple little things that we have to button up, but we're looking pretty good on that end. As we move to Buchanan Verplank Elementary School, the exterior sidewalk at the security entrance, we had to raise that up and make more of a transition there. Instead of there used to be a step up to come into the building, now it just ramps up to come into the building. The security office and the main areas are under construction. Same thing, the millwork is coming next week, and we're expected to have that opening up with that soon. The security storefront with that, again, the same delay with the COVID and the shop drawings, etc. We figure to have those coming soon after that, but they won't be ready for the beginning of school. There's some toilet reconstruction that we did there. We're anticipating have that wrapped up again by the time staff and students return. Classroom doors, we infilled the doors and frames with sheetrock because they had a different type of temporary panel there. We made them, they didn't meet the fire code, so we had to upgrade those to meet the fire code. The frames are installed and the doors have been ordered. We have temporary doors going in before school starts, and then when the real doors come in, they'll be installed shortly thereafter. Classroom HVAC improvements. HVAC is expected to arrive this week. Installation will be scheduled. We have roof curbs that went up on top of the roof, and a lot of that HVAC improvements has to do with exhaust air inside the building. So because we are closing up these spaces that were originally open spaces, if we remember the format of that building, we have to add different HVAC equipment there to help out with the return airs. Furnace Woods Elementary School, the exterior sidewalk, we have that under construction currently. The new security entrance in the main office, that's being worked on. Millwork for that one is coming next week as well. This one's a little more trickier than the other buildings because what we did there is we raised the whole front entrance and that whole main office, so it's all now on one level, so when you come in you have access to the whole building. The storefront there is a little bigger because it encompasses that whole front part of the building. So when school starts, we'll have to use the side entrances to get inside the building, and when that storefront arrives, we'll install that storefront as well, but it's just a little different. We have a new kindergarten playground at Furnace Woods as well. That's about 95% percent complete, and we have a couple of buttoning up things there to do. We also have inside that building all new unit ventilators going inside the building. That work is, I believe, transpiring this week. We're hoping to have that all finished up again by the time we have staff and students return. There's some other ventilation issues that we've addressed in there too in terms of the exhaust air. So we've added some different not unit ventilators, but exhaust fans on top of the roof to bring air out of the building as we're bringing air into the building to keep that airflow inside that building. We reconfigured a couple of offices there, and that work is progressing well as also. Blue Mountain Middle School. The exterior sidewalk for the security entrance is to be completed by the end of this week, beginning of the following week. I'm sorry, strike that. The end of next week, and then following into the additional week. The new security entrance and the main office renovations, they're facing the same timeline as everybody else. Millwork is going in next week and wrapping things up before staff and students return. The security storefront there is also held up, and those drawings and fabrication process was delayed. The gym exercise room, which is the lower gymnasium, that area, we had tile in there. We renovated the tile in there, pulled up all the old tile and put all the tile in there. That's been completed. The locker rooms are under construction, and we're looking to have those completed in sometime in September. One of the things that's will hold us a little bit up in there is the lockers. They're special order. They have to be constructed just for that locker room. So there's some delays there in terms of the fabrication of those and shop drawings, etc. We're not anticipating needing those for the beginning of school, because right now with the requirements and the guidelines, they're saying not to use locker rooms. So we have those off limits for right now. The auditorium, we're also renovating the auditorium there. That's under construction, and we anticipate that to be completed sometime in October. We have an auditorium seating that's going in there, and that we always knew that was going to be something that is a long lead item, and that was going to take a long time to fabricate. So we always anticipated our auditorium being sometime at the end of September or sometime in October. We're replacing doors to the auditorium and the adjacent quarters. They've been ordered, and they will be going in, I think, sometime in September as well. But we're not going to remove the old doors until the new doors get here. This way it doesn't, it's not open and it's not a hole. The science rooms, we renovated 3 science rooms. We're anticipating to have those completed by the time we return as well. Those progressed really well. They look really sharp. I think we're going to be excited when we get the chance to see those and the teachers get back into those spaces. We move on to the high school. The security entrance at the main entrance is a little different than the other schools, because we actually have an area that we designated as the secure vestibule. And the way that we're handling the secure vestibule at the high school is we're just hardening the second set of doors at the top of the stairs. Again, those doors are specialty ordered doors because of the nature of what they need to do. And with the shop drawings and COVID, they're a little bit behind, but we won't rip out the doors that are there until those doors come in, and then we'll do 1 for 1 and we'll get that renovated. The nurses suite, we're renovating that as well, and we're looking to have that completed by the time we get back to school as well. The auditorium is the same pretty much as the middle school. A lot of things happening there. We changed the whole behind the stage. We're changing how we're going to be bringing in props and sets onto the stage. We're making accommodations for that. We have new seating going in there, and that seating is looking to arrive at the end of September as well. The library and computer room, we did some flooring modifications in there. We changed the flooring in there, all new carpeting. We're changing the way we have the tables configured in there, some of the electrical in there, to give more power requirements on the walls. The principal had stated that he wants more requirements on the walls so people can plug in things to charge during the course of the day. and it's an overall facelift to that area. The cafeteria, if you remember what we're doing in the cafeteria, the entrance down by that section, we're changing that configuration in the hallway there for security reasons and moving our doors around and how we can access that space. We have some new sections in there that are going in, but the cafeteria is looking to be up and running by the time school starts, and there may be just a couple of small things that we have to reconfigure there. But the main exit that's going to be there, that's going to go out to the courtyard. Again, that's another storefront, so that's a little delayed as well. The elevator, we have an elevator going in on the back side of the building to access the locker rooms on the lower level. That project is proceeding very well, but there are fabrication and lead times for things for the car, that the elevator car and things like that. Those we always knew were going to be long lead items, and they're going to be coming at some point in time, but they won't be ready for the beginning of school. HVAC upgrades in the buildings, we are under construction, and we believe that those will be completed before the beginning of the school year as well. And that again has to do with a lot of the ventilation, exhaust air into different spaces. The nurse's office is being revamped in the way that we circulate air in there. We have a dedicated system in there. And in the back corridors, we have a lot of ventilation that we're adding in there to get better flow in some of those other classrooms. The maintenance building, which we're constructing here by the district office, I believe is progressing very well as well. We have some steel that was delivered today. There's more that's going to be delivered on Friday. The slab is in, the foundation's in, and they're going to start erecting those panels the following week to get that building up and running. So I think we're progressing along pretty well. This is standard construction. We've been doing this, I've been in the industry for 30 years, and it always comes back down to a big push at the end. We have a small window of time that we can do construction during the summer because we don't want to try to impact everybody else, and so we're doing the best we can to get everything in and get everything up and running. I think we said it last time, our projection is to be substantially complete by the time staff and students return, and that means that we can have the building functioning and operational and safe for individuals to return into the spaces. But there will be still some things that need buttoning up, things that need to be addressed here, need to be addressed there. And like I mentioned, some of those fabrication issues that we have, and those items will need to go in as well.
Can you mute for a second?
When the students come back, the construction will be after hours.
Yes, that's the anticipation that we'll be working after hours, second shift, maybe weekends, maybe holidays to get things buttoned up.
But there's going to be no contact with students and staff with the construction work.
No, we don't anticipate having the students around while we're doing construction, no. I mean, we have staff in the building now. We have some, secretarial staff, we have some custodial staff. So I do anticipate, we'll have some staff in the building while we're doing construction over the next week or so. What do you think?
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to kind of reverse the order and give Corey and Bill the first crack at comments. I see Corey's already raising his hand, so that works out very well. You want to start?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So it's fantastic that we're making all this progress, Anthony, especially during this time when I know it's probably tough for the contractors to get people out there. But I do have a question. If they're going to be around when students are around, or at least there's a chance, have the contractors been vetted for, criminal backgrounds, whether they're allowed, within school areas? I assume that that's something that has to be done.
Yes.
But the contractors just want to make sure it's safe for the kids.
Yes, they have to show us that they, even COVID, that they have to do COVID, they have to wear masks, criminal backgrounds, all that. have to be there before they can even touch our buildings.
Okay, great.
Bill, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I thank you for the update. I do have one question is, the facilities committee usually gets even more deep into this, so I don't want to get, it was a good overview. Thank you, Anthony. The facilities committee hasn't met in a little while. Are we going to be having a meeting soon, hopefully, Anthony? Especially since you got all this going, you got a lot going on, obviously.
Actually, you're right. It's been so busy with everything. We'll try to do something next week.
Okay, great. It doesn't have to be next week, but sometime next week, the following, something soon would be nice. Thank you.
Agreed.
And hopefully by then we'll have our board committee members settled in their new assignments for this year as well. Alex, did you want to comment or question? Nope. Okay, Lori?
Just quickly, what about the playgrounds? Are kids going to be allowed to play on the playground? Silly question, but are they? The little kids going to be able to play on the playground?
We discussed that a little bit on Monday when we met with the principals for each building for the elementaries, and when we spoke to them, some of them indicated that that's not their intent to use the playgrounds at this time, but they, depending on how things go, they may wind up going out there. We also have some. So the ABC 12-1 program or something is moving to Furnace Woods, and we have some adaptive swings that we had at the Frank G. Lindsay playground that will be moving over to Furnace Woods. And I know that, depending on what's transpiring, they'll probably want to try to use those to engage those students. So where we can, I think they will use them. I just don't know how they will be used.
The next thing is, since a lot of exits are not going to be able to use, we are still safe, right? With like kids getting in and out, how they're supposed to. I know the answer is yes. I just want to confirm.
There's no exit that's not being used except for the Furnace Woods one. All the other doors are brand new doors that are going in. So we'll still have all the original doors except for Furnace Woods, where we have the main. So yes, we'll have to work with the principals and the staff to discuss on how we're going to move students throughout the building.
I meant like at Blue Mountain, is that whole front done yet? I haven't walked over there lately. The whole front, the new security front is done?
Again.
So that's what I mean. So since that is being worked on still, that closes off one exit, entrance, egress, whatever you want to call it. So it's still okay? Or am I saying that wrong?
Yeah, the door there is for the new door that's going in there is for the secure vestibule, but you still have the main entrance. If we have to move the construction fencing or something, to corral off that area, we will. But the intent is to have all the same doorways available. Does that make sense?
Did you have any comments or questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah.
Okay, and Lisa, I know you're having some connection problems. Did you have any questions or comments?
Oh, sorry.
I did. I don't know if everybody's going to be able to hear me or not, but I was wondering, Anthony, with the, you've repeated several times about the security storefront. I was just wondering what exactly those entailed. If you could explain that to me a little bit more. Is that that whole entranceway inside between the two doors? Is that what that was?
Yeah. Yeah, so where we're putting in the new entrances for the secure vestibules, and like it's the one for Furnace Woods is a little more different because it's the whole window wall system that was there. But anywhere we're putting in these new secure vestibules, They're, anodized aluminum frames, they have a side light, etc. So they have a little more detail to them, and those things had to be approved by the architect. They had the construction company who fabricates them. They have to submit shop drawings, and then they have to fabricate them. So there's a drawn-out process to getting them. And with the COVID, they're a little behind. They only had people working remotely, etc., etc. So it delayed our typical lead time and process with that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I think we're ready to move on to our general reopening updates next.
Sure. So I'd like to give Lisa and Margaret and Laura an opportunity to give updates on the projects they're leading, and then we'll wrap up with Enrique. As I mentioned earlier, he and his operations team met with principals earlier this week. But we'll start with Lisa Schiffman on all things PPS and SEL as we get ready to reopen.
Hi everybody, yes, we are working diligently to make sure we have everything in place. I think the most exciting news is, we've been talking about making sure we're doing psychological first aid for our staff and students, but we will also be doing it for parents. The parent forum finally has been scheduled. It'll be September 9th at 6 p.m. There'll be more information coming forth. As soon as I get a Zoom link and everything like that, everything will be shared with families. It will definitely be on our website. I'm sure Joe will Twitter it out or tweet it out or whatever it's called, and he will definitely do that. We recently had a SEPTA presentation, I think it was Monday. Had about 50 families come. It was very informative. They asked a lot of great questions, and I was really impressed with the turnout that evening. We are planning on bringing in our special ed students on September 21st for half days, our self-contained, and our 15-1. Our 12-1 students will be in for half days to start that process and acclimate themselves with buildings again. And as we know, we are moving some kids from Frank G to Furnace Woods, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable with the buildings, their families can come in and see the spaces. So we're very excited about that. Our students will start, obviously, half-day remotes with them as well on the 14th, but we're really excited to be able to bring our students in a little bit earlier so they can practice wearing masks, practice everything without as many students within the building. We are actively searching for nurses. We have 2 nursing openings this year. As Laura and I have found out that hiring nurses at this time at the height of the market is very difficult. We definitely have secured one for Furnace Woods, and we're working diligently to secure one for the high school. In the meantime, our middle school nurse, Mrs. Machado, has been wonderfully volunteering to work with the sports, since now we know there could be some sports in the fall, to do the physicals with the school doctor, and our elementary nurse, Mrs. Kolkenchuk, is going to be working on immunization. So parents, please be on the lookout for your immunization letters. Please make sure that you have made time to see the doctor for any physicals or any up-to-date immunizations. They should be coming soon. I think that's about all I have. As far as SEL, again, our teams are working very diligently. They will do some presentations for all staff the first few days of school. They will be doing some presentations on after our first aid, psychological first aid for staff. They'll be doing some review of forms to how to identify kids, how to refer kids, so we know that no student will slip through the cracks. We're assuming that all students have gone through trauma of some sort. To assume that allows us to make sure that every student is viewed in a light that they may need some sort of resources within the school.
Thank you. Margaret?
Good evening, everyone. So we're back to school in just about 5 seconds, it feels, and we've been very busy meeting with principals, teacher leaders at all levels every day, talking to folks, trying to get answers to questions that they have. Most of my work has been around lining up consultants for those opening weeks of school so people feel secure in what they're doing, making sure their questions are getting answered. We had a meeting this morning with the middle school leaders online. They had lots of really great questions, not only around instruction and curriculum, but also around items that they need to use in their classroom. So I called over to the Hendrick Hudson Free Library this morning and had a lovely conversation with Jill
about book handling, and I passed that along to Anthony and Joe, and we'll be ready to pass along the CDC guidelines for book handling in our classrooms. Hopefully, before the end of the week, I'll get that out to staff. It's really just trying to put the final touches, if I could use the word final. I've also tasked myself with tracking the remote learning responses from our families. We are up to a little over 200 in the elementary division. We're about 95 at the middle school and almost 140 at the high school. So we will now be having those chats that we talked about at the first part of this meeting around staffing and the creation of remote learning classrooms. Lots and lots of final details to put into place. We've shared a phase-in schedule with each building, actually, not just each elementary, because every building will handle that phase-in slightly differently. There are some shared experiences around professional learning in the opening few days, but then building principals are working to invite students back into the building, and that will look slightly different from one building to the next. We know that the fluidity of this experience is very disconcerting to all of us. There is nothing worse than not knowing and working in the unknown. And that's what it feels like to us every single day. A new piece of information is shared. The good thing is that we are sharing that information with one another. So Anthony yesterday sent us a CDC update that I went through to make sure that what we were asking, not just as students, but as staff, was still in the guidelines. And that is what we need to do each day to make sure that this is working and that the plans that we're making are not only safe for the people that are coming to work and the students that are coming to learn, but that it is the best possible program we can put forward. And I know our teachers are working toward that end as well. So that is where we are right now. Last minute materials being ordered, working with Laura to do some EdLaw 2 checks for some of the online supplies and websites that teachers are trying to bring to their students. But I am confident that it will come together, and it'll be a joy to have kids back in the building. So.
Thanks, Margaret. Laura, do you want to give an update on all things IT?
Sure. So we've been very busy doing device distribution. So every school building has had at least one, if not two, distribution dates. So that's been really great. We have a new asset inventory system. I may have mentioned this last time, but we had purchased it way before COVID and had planned on rolling it out this summer. So we were unable to do it with our spring devices, but we were able to do it with the devices that we have been handing out most recently. And we are creating plans right now to tag and inventory the devices in this new system in September and October. So we are working with buildings right now. We have identified, we're able to identify every single student that has a device, every single staff member has a device. Our staff have large 14-inch screen Chromebooks, so I was really excited that they are able to now get those devices and start working on them and practicing with them. On the district website, I've been updating the instructional technology site to reflect, the schedule of the distribution dates. We now have a form on there for anyone who's not yet picked up a device to please let us know. As we get closer to the school year, my technicians are really busy working with Anthony's team as well and preparing all the classrooms and solving help desk ticket inquiries. So the best thing that families can do is if they still plan on needing a school device, to please fill out that form so we can get those devices ready to go at the start of the school year. Additionally, we're asking that if you chose to use your personal device and not use a school device, please do return it. We'd like to keep it safe and protected and have on hand if needed. So you can also enter that information into that form, and then we will reach out for people to pick up or drop back off. With over 2,200 students enrolled, about 800 so far have taken a device. That's the hardware thing. So we've been having lots of conversations with teachers. So as Margaret and Lisa mentioned, been meeting with principals, we've been meeting with department leaders, and all these conversations sort of morph into, how do we teach, how do we do this? And so a lot of that, some of it's stems to the technology, some of it's the pedagogy. I can talk about my tech coaches, which again, I'm just so thankful for the great team of tech coaches we have, and those especially who've been working this summer. So we have a student and family website that will be filled with resources for students and families to access. So that is almost complete. So it's under construction at this point. And we are going to continue utilizing our internal website that we created in the spring. So we have tech coaches that are now updating that and enhancing tutorials and guides based on purchases we've made or new decisions we've made and things we've learned from the spring. So whether it be using the app Kami or how to successfully utilize Edpuzzle, or Google Classroom has been something that we've really been focusing on K-8 to make sure that we really streamline and organize to make it easy for students, families, and teachers. So our K-8 teachers have the option to take a self-paced course where it's probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours, where they will go through some steps to just make sure that we're sort of in sync with each other. The same thing's been happening with Schoology. The tech coaches have been in intensive train-the-trainer trainings, but the teachers have a self-paced course that they're also enrolling in over the summer right now that they've been beginning. And so we're full force on trying to get everybody prepped and ready to go. Just a lot more conversations, working with BOCES, working with our partners, and securing contracts. Some of it's last minute because we're waiting for things to be EdLaw 2B approved. As much as I could purchase through BOCES and the Lyric, I have been doing that because we get aid back on that, and it also clears us 100% for EdLaw 2D. But I do have a team of 3 tech coaches, one per grade level, who's working with me this summer on the EdLaw 2D and privacy concerns. So they have been vetting hundreds of applications and software. There are the big names that many teachers, I just mentioned Kami or Seesaw or Google, but there are a lot of small applications or small programs that an individual teacher may love to use with their kids. And we encourage teachers to have some of that individual, freedom in deciding what works for them and their students. But we've had to have each one of those vetted, even if it's a free app. So that team's been really hard at work, and they're going to continue working all year and vetting and reviewing different programs. I think what else? Did I miss anything? There's a lot going on, and it's hard to always summarize it in a summary.
All right. Enrique, do you want to give an update on operations?
We met with all the principals this past Monday, just to be sure that from the operational standpoint, we are ready, we're on the same page. We talked about transportation. In transportation, we agree that anyone that brings his or her kid to school will have to wait until all the buses leave before dropping off the students. And in the way back, the same, they will have to wait to pick up the students after the buses leave. We talked about halls, we talked about bathrooms, we talked about water fountains. So every one of the principals had different ideas of how we're going to work. We talked about lunch. Where is lunch going to happen? In some cases, it's going to happen in cafeteria. In some other cases, in the classrooms. So we're working hand in hand with all the principals to be sure that we have a successful opening.
Thank you.
All right. So now is an opportunity to ask any of these people any questions. Lisa, would you like to go first?
I think I'm good. Good. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. It's really impressive what everybody's pulled together. Thanks.
Lori? You're muted.
Okay. Are we also handing out headphones to kids? Because you have 3 kids. Some situations, I'm sure we have a few situations in our district where maybe people don't live in the hugest of houses and they might be in one room and there's 3 kids trying to learn. Are we also handing out headphones to them so that they could just...
So that's actually been the topic of conversation today. We've been trying to, there's a lot of things that we would love to provide and give, and everything that the price tag keeps building and building. So I've been trying to do my best to stay within our budget. But, just a solid, good pair of headphones would be $45 minimum. But we're looking at that option for potentially teachers, but we are asking teachers, I was on calls today with my AirPods and saying, if you have Bluetooth headphones that have a microphone, it would be really great. It would avoid some feedback. The HHCSD has granted us some money to pay for Chromebook cases for families who might qualify for free and reduced and can't afford to purchase the Chromebook insurance that we're offering for them. And one thing, and we're also looking to identify those who might need a hotspot, for example, based on financial needs. So I've been communicating a lot with Beth Kroger about this, and one of the things I'm going to be continuing the conversation is to help fund potentially headsets for families. We normally, in an elementary school might ask their students as part of their supply kit to provide a pair of headphones just for listening, because a lot of times they might be doing iReady or something on the computer like that. But we want a microphone as well. So we're trying to find something that's going to be affordable, but that's also going to be quality, so it'll last and it doesn't get thrown out in a couple weeks. So that's something we're trying to work on, is figuring out how do we communicate, what's recommended. So I'm going to be updating again. I'm constantly updating our website to put information out there for families. So my technician is actually testing a few different models of headphones right now to work with the Chromebooks to see what's the best out there. But in the meantime, I would advise anybody, if you have a Bluetooth headset that has a microphone, they're perfect because the Chromebooks can work with Bluetooth. Or if you have a headset with a microphone that works with an auxiliary port, that also would be perfect. But yeah, so Lori, that's an absolutely valid question.
Okay, and I know this, that you have to vet everything that the teachers are using. Are teachers aware that they should be sharing with you stuff that they'd like to use? And will you publish this list of vetted stuff so they know what they should be using and not be using?
Absolutely. So because of EdLaw 2D, which actually goes now into effect October, but we've been planning for that for the past year. So even before this, we were already collecting names of apps and software that teachers traditionally use or want to use, and that is how we began vetting products. And then since then, they continue to do that. We utilize the grade level leaders and the department leaders to be really the conduit of that conversation. So, Margaret and I often are on an email from a department leader who might be requesting a specific app or program that their teachers want. Margaret looks at it for curriculum value. I look at it for technology as well as privacy. So we sort, and then we decide where, how, and if we can pay for it. So those are a lot of the combinations that happen. But I would say every staff member has had the opportunity to request what it is that they like to use. And we have an ongoing list. And then we will actually be publishing on our website, because that's part of the requirements of EdLaw 2D, is that we have to publish the Parent Bill of Rights that we get signed from each vendor. So we will be publishing that on our website, but then also in our internal technology support page for staff, we're going to be creating a very user-friendly list for teachers so they know as well what's been vetted, what's maybe still pending, because we're maybe going back and forth with them over language in the contract, and then what is not, they're not able to use if it uses student information. And we're also planning, I mean, I'm going off a little bit, but we're in the process of planning training around privacy. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Woo! So October is when we're going to be rolling out a lot of in-person or virtual in-person-like trainings to staff. They have had to do some trainings already through GCN, but my team of Elisa Rosen, Heather Wynn, and Mary Beth DeGennaro are working on creating trainings, and that's also trainings that they're going to be turnkeying from the lyric. Because we don't want to just check the box. We want to make sure that our staff truly understand why we are putting these limits on programs and what cybersecurity means, and they're going to go into a lot of detail on that. So I went off the answer, but that kind of answer.
That's right. To go back to the biggest question and my biggest fear is, how are we live streaming from our classrooms? How are we physically going to do that? So if I'm in my classroom, I got 10 kids in front of me and 10 kids who are supposed to log in. Do I hold the Chromebooks up here and point it at my smartboard? Like, what do we have that's going to get to the kids at home? And if we are doing something like whatever this live streaming is, what are the ethics and the legality behind it? And do we have parents, like I know a lot of times that you have to have parents sign something at the beginning of the year that says their kid could be in the calendar or whatever you have. Is it something like that? And, so those two questions. How are we actually doing it? Because that is my biggest fear. Like, what am I doing to reach these kids at home as they log in 6 periods a day?
Let me answer the how and the privacy question first, and then I'll weigh in and let Laura and Margaret talk a little bit about, the instruction. You're absolutely right. There are very specific privacy laws in terms of students' picture and likeness being shared. There are also very specific laws just in public schools around videotaping classroom instruction and students and so on and so forth. So we have been advised that any instruction that's virtual, students only see the teacher. It's not a camera in the corner of the classroom like a security camera that shows everybody. We are not doing that, and we have not been advised to do that. So at the beginning of the class, the teacher may have 10 or 12 students in front of him or her. The idea is that there would be a do now or an activity as they come in the door and get themselves settled, whether it's reviewing something they did the night before or a new task that would be 5, 8, 10 minutes. And at the same time, while those students are working, the remote kids would need to sign into the class, and the teacher needs to take attendance. That's one of the biggest shifts from last spring to this fall is state education department says you have to take daily attendance and period by period attendance, and kids need to have live interaction with their students throughout the day. So in terms of how they plan different activities within that class period, it may be while kids in front of them are working, kids online are receiving some direct instruction or vice versa. We're also encouraging every student to bring their laptop or Chromebook, at the middle school and high school, because then kids at home and kids in the building can coordinate and collaborate together. But that will also be a significant piece of our staff development the first month of school is to how do we manage our time in the middle school and high school schedule to be able to get to both. And I'll let Margaret and Laura chime in, but that model conceptually is pretty consistent throughout our region.
Right, and we specifically communicated with our consultants, and they're not new consultants, they've been working with the schools, exactly what the instructional model is. So the consultant who works with our middle school and high school actually shared a template the other day with me where they clearly understand that I am working simultaneously with students who are in front of me and students who are on the computer, and showed how that can be flipped back and forth as a group is engaged, another group is spoken to directly through the use of what we hope is an advanced Google Meet setup,
We'll be able to put kids in breakout rooms and give them an assignment and say, we'll be back in 20 minutes. Please complete that, answer the question, solve the problem, and I'll be back with you. As Joe said, kids will communicate in common docs with one another. I've actually watched them do that in the classroom live in previous years, not just during COVID. So there are many ways that we can engage kids and can work in that environment. Will it be easy? I don't know that it will be easy. But again, we're trying to provide the best possible opportunity that we can. So I'm also working with BOCES to address some of the questions around the block schedule. So I'm looking to find consultants in the content areas to work with teachers. So we have a math teacher who has worked in the block who's going to be available to our math departments to talk about that. I have a load consultant who has worked in the block in Chappaqua who can speak to that. We continue to tackle that conversation and the questions that have come up with that change in pedagogy shift. I think we were impressed to find today when we spoke with middle school folks how many people had taught in that environment in a previous school district. And they're very lucky that they have two administrators at Blue Mountain who also both taught in a block schedule. So John and Anisia can be a great resource to them, and they can be a great resource to one another. So all of those conversations continue so that I tell staff all the time, and I mean this sincerely, my job and my role is to help make your job easier. So I need to know what your questions are, what your concerns are, so that I can help address them, whether it's through professional learning or it's through different curriculum materials or different manipulatives in an elementary math program. But that dialogue has to go back and forth in order for all of us to be as effective as we can be.
Just remember your math people, because that works very easy with history. It does. For history,
you're right, Lori.
For social studies and English, that works great when you're writing, you're correcting, you're editing. But when I'm teaching calculus, I'm not about to teach the same thing twice. Whether you know what I'm saying? So everybody always forgets math people.
No, I didn't forget you. As a matter of fact, that was my primary focus when I reached out to my colleagues at BOCES. They asked me what were the two areas I was most concerned with, and I said mathematics and LOTE. So I know that this is an easier transition, if you will, for ELA and social studies. And science with an attached lab, this could actually be a dream. So, but I am aware, so I promise you I will not abandon the math people.
Right, and I don't know what you're doing with block, but we do that in my school as well, but we don't really call it block. Like, we just have a double period in math every other day. My AP Calculus has a double period in math they have math, they have it every single day, and then a double period every other day. That's what we do with all our APs, and, every single one of our 8th graders takes the algebra, so they have a same kind of thing, a double period of math every other day to make sure they get the 8th grade curriculum and as well as the algebra.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what kind of block you're thinking, but I happen to love my double period every other day. When we have the kids online, are we requesting that their faces show so that?
Oh yes. So as Joe said, one of the things that came across to all of us loud and clear was the attendance policy, and I know our teachers are concerned about this. They expressed that in the springtime as well. So we made it clear in the remote contract, if you will, with parents that attendance means I see you and I hear you. Right. If you log in and then you put your avatar up, you are absent. I need to know that you are engaged in the learning throughout the time that we are together. So yes, that is true K-12.
Wonderful. I just taught summer school. I said, if I don't see your face, you're not here. Exactly. Anything on grading? Have we discussed how?
We haven't discussed grading, and I will go out on a limb here, and maybe I shouldn't, but I will, and say that I'm guessing that our middle school and high school will revert to the grading policies that they have been using in full-time attendance.
Good.
And, if we see a problem with that, I think everybody is very sensitive to the needs of our kids, and I have no doubt that someone will say, let's take a time out and discuss this. But I fully expect that we will go back to the grading policies that were in place in the beginning of 1920.
Okay. My last thing, going back to the ethics and the legality, I mean, we don't have, I hate to say this, parents, but your children are not angels every single second of every single class of every single minute. So we do have to do some discipline while we have kids in our classroom. So what we take a risk, because if I'm going to be on TV like I was, I call it TV right now, you know what I'm saying. My parents know me, and they give me permission to do kind of whatever I want. However, how much are we going to support these teachers if they have to, discipline a child while this is going on live? They need our support. So if a kid is actually acting up in the classroom, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would hope, and I've not had the experience of having anything to the contrary happen, that teachers in a remote environment are just as sensitive as they are in the live environment when they have to address a misbehavior or a lack of attendance. I don't think we had any issues in the spring that were brought to our attention and that would cause us to be concerned about how we open and continue in that environment. Nor do I doubt that if something was inappropriate, that our building level administrators wouldn't hesitate to address it with staff and with parents.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried that a parent is watching at home, watching Mrs. Smith say, something, and then it's all over the place,
I hear you. It's a tricky environment to work in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mary Pat, did you have any questions, comments?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alex, I think you're next.
I just have one about learning gaps. So there was a wide variety of learning experiences in the spring, and so I'm curious how students are going to be assessed and then how any learning gaps might be addressed.
So the district engages in benchmark assessments. Actually, we're required to, by the state, have a benchmark screener that we use 3 times a year. And it's interesting that you bring that up because we were just talking about it today in a conversation with, as Lisa Shipman has shared, we're going to all come back with the assumption that kids have had some type of experience that we should be on alert for, socially and emotionally. So what I don't want to happen is to have kids come back and immediately start to be assessed. We have to talk about, and we'll have this conversation with my elementary grade level leaders and the middle school people because they use a shared assessment about the timing of getting kids in front of a computer to do their iReady screeners, as well as the reading assessments that are a common part of our opening, if you will. In a normal school year, we spend a good deal of September getting some assessment data so that we can make small groups that are appropriately put together for learning needs, figure out where children are in terms of how we reset or readdress curriculum topics. I don't know that I want to start with that right off the bat. I think we need a little bit of time to get to know one another and to also have children adapt to that mixed environment. I'm in school for 2 days, I'm not in school for 3 days. And then once we have that sense of, okay, I think we're in a good place, we'll absolutely dig down and figure out where everybody is. So we have math assessments that are created by our staff and based on our curriculum that will be distributed at some point, I would say in October. Reading assessments that will assess what levels children are at, what strategies they need to strengthen, what they're good at, by the way. And then we have an online screener that also serves as a backup to that. They will be used. I think we need to be judicious about how we put that in front of them in the opening weeks of school. Don't forget there's also informal assessment. So I had a chat with somebody today and I said, I know, we talk about it all the time, but there's so much that we gather in terms of assessment data just by being in a room with students, talking to them, looking informally at the writing that they're doing gives me a great gauge about what they already hold on to as concepts and what they're still trying to come to know and use. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Corey, did you have any questions?
I have just a couple. So where we're asking our students and our faculty to have a certain level of technical proficiency. As a board, I think we should be setting the example and doing the same. One of the things I think that we need to fix, and I know, Laura, we talked about this a little bit, is this meeting. We are using a camera in a room to stream video from a monitor.
I'm sorry, Corey, can we discuss this at the end during new business and kind of, yeah,
okay, all right, sorry.
Questions about the curriculum and the teaching and.
Okay.
But
sorry.
I'm looking forward to addressing that later.
All right. Thanks.
No other questions? Nothing about the reopening update?
I had one more.
Wait, Lori, Bill gets a chance before I go back to you.
All right.
That's okay. Bill?
I have a comment, a reminder to everybody that what's been laid out this evening and in other meetings is a plan for the future based on so many changes that our world is dealing with, that this is a plan. It's not an absolute, it's fluid. There will be changes necessary as they are dictated to us either by federal, state authorities, and or this health crisis. So I want to remind everybody to please continue to work together, including our parents, our teachers, our administrators, and our other staff. We all need to work together, keep our teachers and our students safe, and be very attentive to their well-being, while at the same time accomplishing our primary goal of educating students. And Joe, thank you for all the hard work, and our other administrators, thank you, and all our staff. And I know this is a difficult time, but it's just because we're getting back into school doesn't mean everything's all done and good. It's going to continue to change until we get back to some kind of norm, which who knows when will happen. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Bill. Lori?
Bill, excellent. Absolutely. To go back to Alex and what Margaret were talking about, Alex, we also talk about children too. We have meetings where we talk about, what kids excelled, so there's ongoing discussions all the time. Like I'm having them with my whole math department right now about which kids were on all the time, how did kids do. So I don't know, I know how I feel about grouping. I like grouping, like kids with different abilities. A lot of people don't, because I like to put higher skilled kids with lower. Kids actually don't like that. Adults like to do that more than kids like to do that. But if you know that a group of kids struggles with a bunch of stuff, what I'm just trying to say is we talk. We talk about students and what their gaps are, so it's not like we're going in blind. Blind. You understand what I'm saying? So hopefully that's happening. I'm sure it's happening in Henhead. I have no doubt. And Bill, I echo your sentiments. It's going to take day-to-day changes and fluidity, etc. So we do that for everybody to remain patient. Correct.
Okay, so I don't have so much of a question as a comment. I have watched almost every single forum you guys have done this week, and I have been so impressed that no matter what question is thrown at you, either in that format or tonight, you have an answer for it. And if you don't have an answer, you're not afraid to say, I don't really know yet. We're still discussing that. So I really appreciate that candor and how well thought out everything seems to be. So thank you very much to all the administrators for all the hard work you've been putting in lately. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would just wrap up quickly. A couple statements that we used throughout the parent meetings. One was to make sure that we don't mistake in reopening schools with a return to normalcy, because it's not. Schools are going to look and feel different, as they should. You heard tonight about digital instruction, remote instruction, kids or a teacher teaching two groups of kids at the same time, a lot of technology and apps and software and hardware, and that doesn't even begin the conversation that we're reopening schools in the middle of a pandemic. and that's important to underscore, and that we're watching the redesign of public education in real time, and it's exciting and it's really scary at the same time. This would be a project that would take years to complete, and given the circumstances that we're in as a state or nationally, we're doing it much quicker. So there are things we learn every day, as Margaret said, and new guidance seems like every hour. So we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, and certainly appreciate the board's support and support we've received from the community, because this is a first time for public education that is going through such a renaissance in a short period of time. So thank you all for your sentiments.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to use my discretion as a board president, and I'm going to flip our schedule around a little bit. I know that we don't have any audience comments that were submitted, so I would like to go straight to our board comments, new business section. And then the other administrators. It's been a very long meeting already. For those of you who don't need to answer any of the board comment questions,
Sure. So I think that, we talked a little bit about whether we can use Google Enterprise or Zoom, but I think, we should be using these online meeting functions the way that our kids are. And we should be inviting parents directly into the meeting. We can put them in view-only mode. They should be able to ask questions online real time. When I see the YouTube video, it's got a 10-second delay on it, so people wouldn't be able to ask questions real time on it right now anyway. We just need to fix this. And also, in addition to that, another technology issue is, one of our main ways of communicating to our parents is through the website. And we've been talking about this for, I think, years now, about updating the website. And now I think it's more important than ever that the website be made a little more user-friendly, a little more intuitive. There are a lot of things that we can be doing to make sure that we're leveraging technology to communicate with the community, with our parents, with our students. And I think that we're expecting more from our students than from ourselves. So I think we should be stepping up and doing something as a board regarding technology. So that's all I've got to say. So, I know, Laura, you've been investigating some of this, but I think we really need to expedite what we're trying to do here, because it's taking too long.
Before Laura answers, I just want to clarify one point, Corey. You had mentioned that community members should be able to ask questions in real time. And I just want to remind the community that a board meeting is not a question and answer session. I think it would be really desirable for people to be able to view the meetings and make real-time comments, so that they can make,
that's what I meant.
relevant comments to the conversations that we've had. But unfortunately, the board meeting guidelines are that questions are not asked at the board meeting. You can make comments, however.
Yeah, I apologize for misspeaking, but yes, that was my intention.
Okay, thank you.
So I can briefly address that. As Corey said, we did speak about this, and this has been something that we have been aware of. We use Google Meet as a school district, and so when everything first happened in the spring, we made the decision to stick with Google Meet and not go to Zoom. One, because Google Meet, the suite for education, was free, and the Google Meet itself was free. So rather than paying for Zoom licenses, we felt this was the best method at the time, not knowing how long this was going to go on for. Some districts do use Zoom, and I participate in Zoom meetings all day, every day. So I'm able to see how they all work. Google Meet, we are in the process of switching over to Google to Enterprise for Education, which is going to provide us a lot more information and a lot more levels to Google Meet itself. However, Google Meet has an option where you can live stream to YouTube. But, and Greg and I have had these conversations, it only works for people within the organization. And my only assumption is that it was created for educational institutions like what we're using it for, and it wasn't intended for that purpose. So I already have reached out to the Lyric for a quote for Zoom, specifically for board meetings, because this seems to be the only platform where Google Meet is not serving us to where we need it to be. But again, with Google Meet, you can live stream to YouTube. That's something we do have turned on, but it only works within the organization. So nobody else would be able to actually see it. We're working with Zoom. We're going to try to make that happen. And I think Greg's been really great in trying to be flexible with us. And I know in the past few meetings, Joe wanted to actually speak to the public and be in the boardroom. So I think that was one of the, we were trying to make sure we could film Joe and also show the agenda and show all the board members. And we've talked about what it's going to look like in the future when we are allowed to meet as a board, in person again. Would we prefer to use Zoom and see everybody's faces the way we see them now? Or do we want to put a camera in the boardroom, bird's eye view? So we're thinking down the road, but in the meantime, we do agree with you, Corey. We need to enhance what we have. Regarding the website, we actually spent a lot of time this past, last winter, tweaking and revising the website, and we've created school building sites. We worked with each of the building principals and BOCES to help us redefine what the sites looked like, because they used to be just pretty much mirrors of the district site, and a parent going into BV might want to see BV things. So our principals have been creating Twitter feeds that we can embed into each individual building site. We're in the process of actually bringing some more over into the building sites, and you'll see some of that uniqueness as you go. We've been adding photos and images of the building, of the people who work there, trying to make it more personable. And that was a project we were working on before the pandemic hit. And in the meantime, I'll be honest with you, we use Blackboard as our web hosting service. It is a very challenging site to manage and configure. It is not user-friendly. So that's why often internally teachers will use a Google site, for example, or the tech support site that we create for families and for staff are Google sites, because Blackboard is very challenging. I've been working with it for years, and I'm still trying to figure out how to fix things and update things and format things certain ways. So it is very challenging, but I think we have made some enhancements, and we're using a combination of Google and Blackboard. Blackboard is ADA compliant, so we need to make sure that's why we continue to use it as our host, where Google may not always comply that way.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I think one of the things we really need to focus on is the user experience. So while you're talking about adding some new content, I think it's really all about having an intuitive interface so that people can get the information that they need quickly and easily. No one should have to click more than 2 or 3 times to get to the information they want, and it should be fairly easy to find it. So I think I'm thinking about the main site, I'm thinking about the district site, I'm not thinking about the schools at this point, but it all should flow together. And we shouldn't have, different schools having completely different sites. There should be a flavor and an experience to each of the sites that's cohesive, because we're one single district.
Yep.
And then as a parent goes from the district site to the school site to another school site for another one of their students, they should be able to find the same kind of information in the same place and should have the same look and feel. So that's really...
Yeah. We worked with PT. We shared when we were in the building stage, we made the agreement that we were not going to change the look and feel of our site, the template of it, because we didn't want to completely throw people off. People knew where pages were. We reviewed it with PTA and shared with them what we were thinking. We received feedback from those groups. And what you will see is you have the district framework of the site, and then from there, each of the schools are mirrors of that, and then unique slightly based on content and information from that building. But the templates and how everything's laid out are the same. And we're constantly updating. Even,
Margaret's curriculum instruction site, that's something she worked really hard on. I mean, again, a lot of this kind of got halted pandemic time, but updating the content on there. Lisa was doing a lot with the PPS. And then also, and getting the buildings to be able to upload and update things as they go. But you will see that familiarity in how the site is created. So there is a theme that goes across.
Great. Thank you. I'm hoping that we can get this done between the board meetings and the sites done fairly quickly, because now it's more important than ever.
Yeah, and Corey, I mean, when I first took over this job, Joe could attest to this. It was one of the first things I said to him, because I'm a parent and I go into my school district's website all the time, and so I look at it from that lens a lot as well. And I said, Joe, we need to work on this. So that was a big conversation, and why we did start to make some of those changes.
Great. All right, thank you.
Lori, you look like you had a comment.
I don't know what this is in comparison to Blackboard, but I happen to like Canvas too. I don't know if we're familiar with that, but I know a couple of school districts that use Canvas. It has everything all in one spot. It's pretty cool. Anyway, when we're talking about board meetings, I don't know when this is going to happen, but I'd like to start meeting in person. I think if we're going to ask our students and teachers to do it, then we should also. Of course, using necessary precautions and distancing, but there's nothing like setting an example.
Right. I'd like to address that, actually. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. So when we originally moved our meetings to the district office, it was right after Parkland, and it was because of security concerns of being in the high school and having the high school building open to the public after hours, etc. Our district office is not big enough for us really to be socially distanced adequately in that room, I think, for the number of people that we want to have in. And there's no way we would be able to have the public in there at the same time. So as a board, I think we have to talk a little bit about meeting format. If we're 6 feet apart, wearing masks in a building, how are we going to be filming that? Who's going to be enforcing mask wearing for people if we're in a school building? Then do we really want to invite outside people into the school building that don't have to be in the school building?
No.
So there are some logistics that have to be worked out. If we can get this format going in the meanwhile, that would be better. And I completely understand the optics, and I feel comfortable with what our team is doing. And I personally would like to extend the invitation that if anybody wants me to come into their buildings, any of the principals, on the opening weeks of school, I would be happy to do that and meet and greet people and see the students just as a presence in the buildings to show that the board leadership does appreciate what's being done. But I think over the next couple of weeks anyway, or the next couple of months, I don't see us being in a room together as a board.
I think that's a shame. I have to tell you. There's only 7 of us compared to 12 kids in a classroom with a teacher and a teacher aide, etc. I mean, even if we don't invite guests or parents, we're still online and they could still kind of answer. We have all that technology where people can do their comments, like Corey is saying, but there are 8 of us. And in that room, we are definitely can space out. And if we're asking kids and teachers, we should be doing the same thing. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's 8 of us plus administrators, and we have to work out the logistics. I've been saying this for a long time. I would like nothing better than to have all of us back in the same room again. Some of us have different health concerns. There might be some board members that aren't comfortable meeting in person yet, and let's face it, our buildings aren't quite ready yet. We know that. It's going to be at least a couple weeks. So yes,
but then we could practice that too. So then we have remote board members and in-person board members.
Right. So this is a conversation that's going to be continuing, and hopefully sometime in the near future we'll all be able to all be together. But I don't think next board meeting that's going to happen, or even the board meeting after that.
Excuse me, I don't advocate maybe not next board meeting, but one, we are asking the kids and the teachers and the staff and everybody to come back. We're approximately 10 or 12 people, and we don't have to go pile down in the district office. You can go in the cafeteria in one of these rooms. There's plenty of room to mask up and socially distance. But I just think that, again, if we're asking these children to come, everybody, the staff and the teachers and the parents to trust us, that we've done a good enough job to prepare this for their kids, and we're like, to quote like the news here, the bunker board. I think it's terrible, and I appreciate that I believe that there are ways that we can mitigate this. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of us are actually I've been to work for the past couple of months, and I mask up and I do what's necessary because that's what you do. That's what other people have been doing, and that's what we're asking our teachers and our staff to do. So I really think that there are ways to get around this, and I think it's important for the community who, to be honest, seems to have some concerns with our effectiveness or what's going on here. It would be nice for them to see us actually working together, showing a lot of just noise on their, whatever device they're listening to actually see people and have the conversations back and forth and not have to just sort of like wait for to be unmuted or, have these glitches where somebody is muted. I think there's a lot to be gained by actually getting together and actually having these conversations in person and showing the district and showing the community that we do believe that the schools are, that they have been cleaned properly, that they are safe to come back to, and yes, please trust us, that your children are safe. I think that the Corey's point about improving the technology, absolutely, because it appears that we're going to be using that, every day for these children until this all gets resolved. But I think for the board meeting, I think there's a lot to be gained by just, a dozen of us just in a room together, in a very large room, adequately spaced, masked. I mean, it's miserable. It's not, would we all like to just sit home and do this? It's yes, that's easier, but sometimes the easy way isn't the right way. I think there's a lot to be gained to think about, like having the board meetings in person again, and not waiting until all of this is over, because I think by that time, I think a lot of time and energy and confidence will be lost.
I'm not really sure anybody was saying we should wait until all of this is over necessarily.
Well, it was suggested several months or not even, there was no date in sight. I mean, there was no suggested timetable.
That's correct. Yeah, because we have to see how the school reopening is going to go in the fall, I think. I mean, from a medical standpoint, I don't think it makes sense from a health and safety perspective, personally, to add extra people to a school building that don't necessarily have to be there. I completely understand the optics, and like I said, I would be happy to be in a boardroom with you, socially distanced, etc. And if we can figure out how to do that, and if the school community thinks that it is important enough for us to be in those school buildings and potentially, introducing more people into those school buildings, and the teachers feel comfortable with that. And
it's not, I'm saying a meeting. I'm not saying everybody, go and contaminate everything. I'm saying one meeting every 2 weeks for approximately 12 people. And if the technology is out of it, we can get people to call in, and they can have their voices heard, but they can see people respond, and they can see us working together. And again, I don't know what suggestion there is about a timetable or something, but I do think there's some value to doing it and doing it soon. And I don't think if we can if we're bringing in 1,000 kids, and I don't know 150 staff, I don't think adding 12 people every 2 weeks is really going to change that. It's not going to increase the danger dramatically.
Okay, you make a very good point. Does anybody else want to weigh in on this?
I don't have anything else to add. I agree with Mary Pat and Lori. I'm looking forward to working with you guys all in person. As a new trustee, I don't know anything else besides this format, but I think it would be very beneficial for all of us to work together in a room. So I look forward to it.
Thank you, Alex. Bill?
You know, it's been stated that many of us are going to work. You know, the board members, we do go to our own jobs and we deal with the risks there. And when we come together, we need to be smart as a district. And when we have to have people together, we should. But to be smart, if we can effectively have an alternative, we should also utilize that. I mean, if we're in a large room like the gym and very spread out, I think the video capability is going to be degraded to the community compared to what we should be presenting, how Corey is saying on our live streaming it, where we're all individually shown in our own box on a video conferencing is a lot more effective than trying to get a camera that's going to be scanning the whole, maybe the cafeteria or the gym to capture all of us, approximately 13 people in a room. And just because I can go to the supermarket and I can wear a mask and be safe, we have to be smart about it. Like, my wife and I would frequently go food shopping, but because of COVID, I don't go and push the basket and help her out anymore. We only want to expose potentially one person. Why expose two when you can possibly only expose one? And I think we need to think like that. If it's necessary, we do it. But if it's not necessary, I think the remote virtual board meetings can be done very effectively. I agree with Corey 100% that we could be doing a better job on these virtual meetings, because I've participated in many business meetings with virtual conferencing, and we could improve in that area. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to see everybody and get together with everybody, but I think we need to be smart and safe for everybody.
Lisa, did you have anything to say on this? She looks like she's frozen for the moment. So I'm going to move on to Corey. I think we started with you. We've come full circle.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, Lisa, are you back with us?
Kind of in and out, but hopefully long enough to talk for a little bit. And I apologize because I wasn't able to hear everybody else's comments because I got booted off in the midstream there. So I don't know what's been said already, but I would really like to have us all meet together if we can do it safely. But I understand, what Bill is saying. This format, if we can get it to work right, it probably is the better way of doing it. The other concern that I don't know if anybody's addressed yet is if we are meeting in person, we're potentially delivering the building and that space and causing a lot of extra work for the custodians and other people. Much as I have us meet together in person, I don't know if it's worth that extra risk for our workers in our buildings and our staff. And I certainly have been I've been going to work and doing things in the community as well and masking up, and I don't have a problem doing that. I think we do need to be sensitive to the impact on the school buildings and on our workers. And everybody's frozen on my screen, so I don't know if anybody can hear me or not. But anyway, that's it.
We can hear you, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, so obviously, we have some discussion to do. We should start investigating we should start investigating where we might be able to have these meetings in person and what our technical drawbacks would be, perhaps, because I think everybody would like to be meeting in person again, and partly it's a logistics issue. So, Joe, if we could look into that a little further, and maybe we'll discuss it again at the next meeting.
Yeah, let me just wrap up this conversation with, this has been a discussion that a lot of school districts are having regionally. We usually start this sort of conversation with our attorneys to make sure that we are following all of the executive orders or open meetings laws, so on and so forth. One of the outstanding questions is, if we meet in public, does the meeting need to be open and available to the public? That's a question that the attorneys are going to research. If we do meet in public, the meeting will still need to be live streamed. In the past, we would meet and we would record the meeting and put it up on our website, so we would still need to live stream the meeting. Also, if folks from the public are going to attend the meeting, they have to also take the same attestation that staff and students will have to take around COVID and being symptomatic. We may need to take temperatures of visitors attending board meetings, and that's just a wrinkle in the conversation going forward. We also would need to take everyone's attendance and get their name, address, and phone number, because if there is by chance an outbreak, we need to provide all that information to the health department. So again, much like reopening schools is not synonymous with return to normal. I would give the same sort of caveat with going back to public board meetings. Those are some considerations we need to take into account, some questions we still need answers.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that was we're on board comments, new business. Does anybody else have any other board comments and new business? And then we'll move on to our committee reports. All right, so let's move on to our committee reports. I know, Alex, you had something for us. You went to the Westchester Putnam School Board Association roundtable this week, yeah?
Yeah, so I was able to participate in the town hall meeting yesterday. The topic was reopening and what the other school districts in our region are doing. So there was 10 other districts on the call. It was really eye-opening to see, even though we're all dealing with the same exact set of challenges, there is no one is doing the same exact thing to reopen. Everyone is taking a different approach to it. Only one other school was able to offer 5 days a week for their K-5 students. So I was so for the schools that aren't, some of them are doing an AM, PM, where half the kids are coming in the morning because they wanted, the parents wanted to have that contact every day with the elementary students. But they noted that the problem with that is the increased the cost of busing and PPE and cleaning. Other schools are doing, like we're doing for the middle and high school, with the AB hybrid. So their kids, but then they're not live streaming the 3 days, so their kids are only getting 2 days of instruction and then work from home assignments. So I was really impressed with our level of what we're being able to offer students here at HUD. A lot of people who are doing the AB days, they're using the flex day, either Wednesdays or Fridays, again, across the board for teacher planning, professional development, office hours. It was, and then the one topic that I've not heard discussed in any of our town hall meetings or Zoom meetings has been about extracurricular activities. And again, across the board, completely different. Some school districts are saying that they're going to wait till see how reopening goes and then try and establish extracurricular programming for their middle and high school students. Other schools are running clubs remotely so the kids can participate, but they just will run them later and everyone has a chance to participate remotely. And then a couple of schools were doing like a pick a time where kids can schedule, they could be together in the school after school hours, but they were limiting attendance and kids, it was like a first come first serve sign up for those spots. So I haven't heard any discussion in HUD what our plans are outside of outside of athletics, what our extracurricular activities will look like for middle and high school students.
Yeah, it's a discussion we've had with our principals, particularly at the secondary level. That's where the vast majority of those activities are. It's going to take some time. We're going to wait until students re-enter at the end of September, and it's going to be about comfort level. There are some clubs that can certainly meet remotely outside of school hours, that have different functions, like whether it's National Honor Society or the Math Honor Society. I'm thinking of some of those more academically focused clubs. Certainly will be difficult for a robotics or Lego club to meet, because that you need to be in close proximity. But it's on the wait and see list to see how what the comfort level is with staff returning. But I know that the clubs that began last year ended last spring as well as they could remotely, so it's possible. We're just we want to see how the physical interaction goes with reentry before we commit. It's actually one of the recommendations from the CDC that after-school activities do not commence until further notice, just so there could be additional time at the end of the day for cleaning and that kind of thing. So it's certainly on the radar. We're just not. We want to study it a little bit more.
I get it, and thank you that it's at least on the radar screen. I just know for some students, it's a matter of social and emotional being able to touch those students, and not just in an academic way. So I'm glad we're exploring what might be options. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any reports on any meetings that they may have been to? Okay. All right, so if I am correct, that concludes our agenda. We do have a brief executive session to do. I think there's only one topic that we need to discuss, and it'll be quick. And we may need to have a meeting next week, so we can coordinate that during our exec session also. So can I have a motion to close the public portion of the meeting, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And a link has been sent for